and I've been approached by someone who's perhaps questioning a lot of these numbers, Ms. Barbara Haselden, and she has recently approached me several times, and Mike Hansen, she came to the last PSTA board meeting and made a comment that she has trouble tracking all of our expenses year to year, and she suggested, or she went and talked to some of her friends on the HART board, and HART produces a CAFR, Consolidated Accounting Financial Report. A CAFR is defined by the Government Financial Officer of America, GFOA, and has very specific requirements. It is more than what PSTA produces now. We produce an annual audit as the state and feds require, but we don't develop a full CAFR. What would be required we would have to spend more money on our auditing firm and do a lot more of this detailed analysis showing these trends and forecasts in the report. We're trying to put together those numbers now to consider what that would cost us. Is it worth it to do that out into the future?
I'm going to tell you is we do it. A lot of governmental agencies do
I think
it.
all
It's just
cities
sort of,
do it. I think all
yeah,
cities
and we should have,
to do it.
yeah, I think, and I feel still, I kind of thought our audit was that. I just thought we weren't calling it, I thought we were calling it something else. But yeah, we should.
I just have one question. Does this take into consideration the growing services at all? Or is it just based on the services we have today?
The expense graph does assume some growth in services, limited. though.
Limited.
Beyond the fiscal year 2014, which I would describe as also limited, but we have, as you know, put in approximately $365,000 in additional service for 2014. We haven't planned out anything specific in 2015 yet or beyond under this revenue scenario. So yes, there is a service expansion. We also think DART will provide additional services to people. That is built into that.
Okay, but when you compare the growth that we've had just this past year and expand that to what we're seeing happen, I mean, PSTA is growing in demand, but are we going to be able to support that growth with this budget?
We are not expanding services enough to meet the existing demand, let alone growth in that demand. You're right.
This chart is without the referendum and the increased services that would come from that. It still gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's not sustainable. Am I correct?
Correct.
And but yet, we're planning on expanding some services next year.
Yes.
You said 365,000 or something.
Yes.
It's difficult for me to support that. If the referendum fails, we would then have to collapse back those services.
Right, right. And we talked about that before, that this is a sort of a balanced plan for the fiscal year 14 budget to take some of the savings and roll it into capital to help there, but not totally solve that problem. Add some services as part of the plan and to buy that other year, FY16 of stability.
That's one thing I'm sort of struggling with.
The question is, I mean, we could, like we've discussed, we could just continue to try to cut costs or not expand and hope the economy improves and that blue line gets better and maybe try to hit that dashed line for a very long time. I mean, we keep trying that and not increasing services, still not have a sustainable plan, even under the best case scenario. So the question is, shouldn't we try to improve and expand, provide the most service we can to the public, no matter what our revenue situation is? That, I think, is the justification for adding some services.
Well, that's our purpose in life. Is
Yeah,
provide
right.
service.
That is why we exist.
Yeah. It's just that
Scary.
sustainability challenge. The other comment I wanted to make was on the CAFR. I went out to Wikipedia, and CAFRs are generally used when you have enterprise funds, and you account for an enterprise fund differently than if you're just living off of taxes. And I think we asked this question, and I don't remember what the answer was why didn't we report our accounting on an enterprise fund? Because we get revenue, and I guess so that might make a whole lot of sense to spend the additional small amount, depending on how much that is, and generate a CAFR for us.
Susan, do you have any?
My first comment is, what fabulous graphics you have provided. It's a great job, and it really, I'm a visual person, so it means a lot to me, but I really appreciate that presentation, the way you made it. It's good information, and it's easily understood. That's important. I guess we need to resolve this CAFR issue. But we need to know what it would take. Will it require more staff, more accounting fees?
We think it
the
will
auditor?
require both. And we have in our budget for fiscal year 2014 a budget analyst position in there that Mike's commitment back there. Mike is our budget director. We think we can try to implement this in fiscal year 14. But we have, I don't know if we've talked yet to our accounting firm.
Not yet. This week.
See what it'll take on ours.
Great
Our
job.
heart goes through the effort also of applying for an award or getting an award. I can't remember what it's called. DFOA award.
Distinguished
There's
budget.
one for budget, one for financial.
And in order to get the award, you have to do a CAFR.
Yeah, you have to do a capital. For the budget.
Is our budget on the website?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just have a couple of things. Without knowing any other further information in regards to cost, all of that, I think the CAFR is at least the right direction to move towards, unless we hear something.
It does
Some
have
larger-
it does have a limited audience. I mean, there's not
No.
all of our audits are on the website, and the number of hits are.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but it's still. And when I say this, it's no insinuation that we are not, but just one more tool to keep us honest, one more tool for the folks out there to see what it is we're doing. And, I'm all for that. So, in regards to your recommendation on keeping a more conservative budgeting practice, I'm more of a realist, so I never like to be overinflated. You're never going to get it completely right. Nobody does. I mean, it's just part of forecasting. But you know, we're making decisions based on that budget and based on, you know, we're making capital plans based on that budget. So if we're kind of going into the budget saying, we're pretty sure we're going to be better than what it's showing, and we continue to budget that way, well, then, you know, you really can't make the kind of plans you want to make. I mean, you're really, it can be perceived, I'm not saying that's our intention, but it can be perceived as, you know, not telling the whole story. And so that bothers me a lot. I would rather see us, I'm not saying go right to the line, but I'd rather see us be a little bit more real with what we think we're going to do. I know that I'm in the minority. So I'm not even going to bother fighting for it, I already know. But I just feel that, for me, I want to know, especially early on in the green light process, or not the green light process, early on in our study process, prior to kind of green light stepping in as being our plan, you know, our big concern was that we were going to run out of money by such and such a time. That was a big issue. Well, now if we see we're good until 2 or 3 years past what we were saying back then, and the budget is overinflated, the expenses are overinflated, I think the revenues are probably pretty darn close, but the expenses are a little overinflated, then, you know, what we've been saying and worrying about really isn't, it's farther off than what we're telling people, and I don't feel comfortable with that. And I know it's a crapshoot, I understand that, but my big concern is having having folks have a level of trust and faith that nothing is ever going to be perfect. You know, you can only project, but that we are knowingly trying to do our best job in making those projections and speaking to that, and that creates a level of trust. And if we're continuing, not continuing, because I don't believe that we've done that, but if we are overinflating our expenses moving forward, then that, and people see that, like what happened this year, we had so much savings. If that continues to happen, it's not just a one-year thing, then I know it's good for us, but it's also presenting a picture that can be, I'm not saying it is, but can be less than truthful. Can be perceived that way, and so that bothers me.
I know it doesn't.
Yes,
fight
ma'am.
all these cracks.
I look at it very differently than you do. And it's not being dishonest. This is real accounting. If we make the decision to budget less than 5% of our expenses, that's just a decision, a budget decision. The county does that. We know what our revenue is, close to it, and we only budget 95%. That's not being deceitful. It gives us that cushion for gas price fluctuation or anything else that happens. The way you're looking at it is not true accounting principles. Not a better way to say it. But that's a decision that we would make, that goal to not budget the whole, every penny that we estimate coming in. And that's good business practice. And it gives you a cushion.
Well, and what I'm trying to say is, I don't know that we need as much cushion as we're providing ourselves, is what I'm trying to say. I think you should have a cushion. I mean, you're never going to be exact. I get it. I totally get that.
We can argue that till the cows come.
Right. And I said, I know I'm not going to be agreed with in this room. I know that.
Right.
It's just, but it is the way I feel.
Well,
And I think we've done a really good job in the last couple of years of really being, you know, real close to being on target. And so
And the
that's
hard
important to me.
work of Brad and his staff to reduce costs.
Mhm. Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
why we're in the shape
Where
we're
is
in.
that?
That's why we're not running out of money next year. That was real. That was a fact. And because of staff's hard work, finding ways to cut costs while still increasing our service, well, that's not gonna happen.
You look at this graph, and every time that blue line is above the red line, that they start at the same spot, this is like a mutual fund comparison.
Yeah.
Every time that the blue line's above the red line, that means that we have gotten more efficient with our budget and still provided more service or grown the service faster than the budget has increased. PSTA, long before I got here, or even had heard of PSTA, has done a good job of that over time, putting the most service out that we possibly could, or more service out per dollar. And then when you, and I know that's a fact too with our benchmarking. I mean, we're one of the most, I think the most efficient providing service out on the street. But it sort of gets to the whole premise of what is the level of service we provide? Is this enough? We're doing the best with what we've got, but when you look at that graph and say, well, yeah, maybe you could save $1 million and do something better, but really the budget document is a plan. This is a plan. And what you're concerned about, I think, or what the risk is about being too conservative, is just that you have money that are in your plan that you're not allocating, that you could have allocated to more service. We could have put more service out there, but we were being too conservative when we held on to our account, our savings account, too much. That's the risk. That's one of the justifications for adding service. It's just that we should be closer to the red line. If we're going to adopt a budget that we're at the red line, then we should provide as much service as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to shock Julie and partially agree with her.
Yeah, you are shocking.
And I don't think it's not being truthful. There's some wizardry in budgeting that you want to be. You always want to make your budget, but you don't necessarily want to beat it too much, because then you're hampering your ability to project out into the future. And I believe the city of Clearwater, we calculate our salaries, staff, and then we take 1% out of that, because we know that past history is, we're probably going to beat that. We've beaten that for years, and we're going to likely beat that.
Yeah.
And by making some of those adjustments, if there are those, I know fuel is just a crapshoot, but if we make some of those adjustments like you've done, that sustainability question gets more understandable. It looks more realistic. Because if you have the full difference there, we should not be adding another hour of service. Because that we're never going to make up. You know, if you're losing money on every unit, you can't make that up by volume. So I would encourage you to still be conservative, but not overly conservative when you know you've had some experience. If it's fuel that's causing us to go way unsustainable, then maybe we need to think about options like the CNG. But I think the conservatism is good, but we need to be realistic in our forward budgeting, and we shouldn't be adding service.
So let me ask you this question. At least what I think I'm hearing caution. You know, let's be conservative. But what I'm also hearing is a little desire to maybe go back and tweak a couple of things that you know for sure. Like, you know you're not going to fill all your vacancies. Nobody ever does. So maybe there's a deduction there. Whatever. I'm not going to sit and get into the what's and wherefores. of what it is. But maybe you should go back and adjust a little bit, maybe not as much as your line is there. Is that something that you can live with? And feel okay about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay with
For
that.
what purpose?
To be a little more realistic. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's not to that line there, but.
What if it goes the other way? What if nobody retires or quits or passes away? Whoops.
I don't think that's gonna happen,
And then, oh, well, do you know that? And then you're gonna be on Brad's back about you were wrong.
Well, like I said, I'm not gonna pick and choose what it is. Maybe it's not all the way to that line. Maybe it's not the salaries. I'm not gonna pick and choose what it is. But he's readily admitted that it is very conservative and that he does think it could be less in some places. So, less or more, whatever the correct term is. So,
And do what with that money? Expand service?
I'm not there yet. I'm just
So
looking
what
at what's
happens
on,
now?
I'm just looking at what's on paper here. I don't know what to do. I'm not ready to make that call or whatever that decision is. You know, you just said a little while ago that with that money, it would expand us out one more year of being sustainable. So leave it there and be more sustainable, or use it towards adding some more service. I don't know. I don't know what that answer is. But getting more realistic is,
Well, I think the county, don't you plan on a reserve in your budget? Instead of being a totally balanced budget, you say, there's going to be something that we don't know what's going to happen. And I would rather have that and have more past history realism or experience in some of these projections, like the salary. We're always 1% under, then it's not projected out that it's going to continue.
you're saying ask for the reserve
That
or whatever.
we don't have to budget every dollar that we expect in this year. Because, I mean, I just go and see that big gap continuing as something, as a stop sign for us. We shouldn't continue. We've got to restructure, do something different. Because we need to provide bus service for the next 10 years. And right now, if the referendum fails, we can't do that. Or if the referendum passes and we still have this divergence, we're not serving our public. We're going to have the same problem 10 years ago.
But that's reality. If the referendum doesn't pass, we're going to be cutting service moving forward.
Well, if, with that divergence, we're going to be cutting service at some point, even though we may have expanded service temporarily. And I just, we've got to get to be.
What I hear you saying though is
sustainable.
that planning the extra reserve, or I don't know if I call it extra, but planning the reserve is for those things that are unexpected. That the budget itself should be more realistic, that the reserve or even a bigger reserve, whatever, is there for those unexpected things. That's what I hear you saying. Is that what you're saying?
And what is not realistic in our budget?
Well, I think the presentation that Brad just gave us tells us that,
I wouldn't describe anything as not realistic, but I think that the
But
salaries and
slightly
fringes
overplayed.
is computed where I'm confident we'll be able to have no more than that. I don't think there's any risk of going over budget in that salary and fringe graph out into the future.
Which is where you want to be.
Right.
Do you want to count on somebody retiring, well, not retiring necessarily, but quitting and changing jobs?
again,
No, I mean, we have labor negotiations and other things that could dramatically affect that, but we can do something like Clearwater does and just take off assume 1% less. It's just a plan.
I understand.
I want to be respectful. I think I'm talking to the four of us are the people that are most interested in the subject, and we can talk about it. We do talk about it all the time, and I love it. But we have an hour and 5 minutes worth of stuff to talk about.
All right, well, so this was an informational item. What are you looking? I mean, because you're correct, at the last board meeting, or whenever it was talked about at the board meeting, there was at least 2, if not 3, board members questioning that big wide gap.
Right, and I think you
Which is
provided
why
me
you
guidance.
brought this forward.
I think you have provided me sufficient guidance to review this and to look at trying to be a little bit less conservative overall, and look at different approaches to that.
Again, I don't think we want to.
I don't think I'm going to alter at this point my FY14 budget recommendations, but yeah, in the presentation of these drafts and the forecast out in the future, try to be a little more conservative.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm on first.
So we're going to go, are we going to jump back to the green light endorsement of the green light plan?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, it would be better to do
Can we go ahead and get a motion to accept the July 17th minutes?
Here's my wish. Yeah. Very good. What? Okay, so
Hang on 1 second. We're just going to try to get the minutes out of it.
Just above public comment, this is the Jolly Trolley. However, they are requesting PSTA pay a 3% increase. I'm not sure who the they refers to. Is that Jolly Trolley?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Just above the line, public comment.
Under Jolly Trolley Services.
The last line there says Clearwater Jolly Trolley Service, however, they are requesting PSTA pay a 3%.
That would, okay, yeah, that's the Jolly Trolley.
Did you have a motion to approve that one? Or that change? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Okay.